To me, Minister, water is a human right.
The idea behind that sustainable funding stream was so that we could privatise it was an absolute myth.
The very reason that communities stopped the installation of water meters was because of the deeply held understanding that every metre that went into the ground was another step towards privatisation. During the debate of no confidence in Minister Murphy and his housing policy, I had another reason for expressing no confidence in him. 3 years ago, a bill passed through second stage in this House without opposition, and that bill is the 35th Amendment of the Constitution, Water in Public Ownership No. 2 Bill, which seeks to enshrine public ownership and management of public water services into the Constitution. The bill has been trapped in committee for 3 years, first by the Taoiseach when he was Minister, and since then by the current Minister, Eoghan Murphy. The excuse given over and over is that the Minister is waiting for an amendment or amendments to the bill from the Attorney-General, and after 3 years of hearing this, it's just not credible. The intention, in my opinion, of this Minister is, and has been, to bury my bill in committee. The Minister does not have the guts to come into the Dáil and argue against and vote against the bill with the purpose of leaving open the possibility of privatising our water services at some point in the future. I think this is yet another disgraceful example of the disregard for basic democracy and the decisions of elected representatives of the people. I am really concerned now that the bill will not see the light of day with the continuing action, or should I say inaction, of the Minister. I know that the Right2Water unions are in the process of contacting all parties and groupings in the Dáil in relation to this issue. I certainly know thousands upon thousands of people are hugely concerned and angered that Fine Gael are trying to bury this bill. The very reason that communities stopped the installation of water meters was because of the deeply held understanding that every metre that went into the ground was another step towards privatisation. And I certainly know that local authority workers and water services want a referendum and support my bill. The Future Funding of Public Domestic Water Services Committee supported a referendum to keep our water in public ownership, and the Irish Congress of Trade Unions supports a referendum on public ownership, and there is no opposition to the bill in this Dáil on paper, but you're still trying to bury it and drag it to the next election. So I say again, Minister, I'm calling on Minister Murphy to move the amendments that the Minister said in the letter to the committee in July of this year would be ready by this autumn, or, as I said, have the guts to come into the Dáil and argue against and vote against the bill.
The mantra of a lot of people in this House was that the idea behind that sustainable funding stream was so that we could privatise it was an absolute myth and was never borne out by anything close to resembling reality.
To me, Minister, water is a human right. We have, and I have on the committee, have worked with the Minister on this. We've met the department twice, once ourselves and once with a barrister, and the Minister has recognised this. We tried to get it to committee in April, and the Minister, because he hadn't got the AG amendment, urged the committee to postpone that meeting. So we got 6 members, that's 3 Fine Gael and 2 Fianna Fáil and 1 Rural Independent, to postpone that committee meeting. He did say in July, in a letter to the committee, that he would have the working amendments in the committee by this autumn. I have the letter here from the Minister, and it still hasn't happened. Now, after Christmas, we probably will have, at the max, 40 working days in this Dáil. This government, when it wants to, as in the IBRC, was able to bring in legislation overnight. Why has this Minister taken so long to bring the amendments that he said he would bring in? Because I believe he is trying to bury the bill. And I am insisting that this Minister will not do that, as far as I'm concerned, and hopefully as far as the people in this Dáil are concerned in the opposite.